Tattooed chef. What the f happened? It felt like just when I started to let myself get excited about a new, widely available range of frozen vegan meals, they disappeared from store shelves. There are a lot of videos on YouTube analyzing Tattooed Chef from the stock market perspective and what went awry there. But I've been more curious about how a plant-based, and we'll get into why I'm using air quotes, company launched, had huge success, went public, and then filed for bankruptcy all within 5 to 6 years. So I looked into all of it, the timeline, the products, who's involved, who is this Tattooed Chef, the controversy, the bankruptcy, and today I'm going to share with you what I found. Before we get into it, please remember to give this video a thumbs up if you find it informative. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Please subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And let's talk about Tattooed Chef. I want to start out talking about my experience of an opinion of Tattooed Chef over the years. I think I started seeing commercials for them maybe in 2021. They did a lot of marketing, especially in mainstream media. Looking back, it seemed unusual for a new vegan or vegetarian company to have so much marketing power behind them. I just wasn't really sure what to think of them, but I had seen the commercials, so they were on my radar. The first time I remember seeing them in stores was in Salt Lake City when I was there for a work trip in 2022, which I actually vlogged. I went to Target to get groceries for my hotel room, and I remember looking at the frozen aisle and seeing Tattooed Chef products. Again, I was kind of intrigued, but I wasn't really sure I wanted to commit to trying a new product at that point. But one of my coworkers had actually gotten their meals and ate them for lunch every day during our work trip, and she was singing their praises, and this coworker was not vegan or even vegetarian. And so at that point I was like, oh, maybe they are good, that's cool. I don't remember seeing their products near where we lived, but in summer 2022 we were in Maine and I saw the Killer Bee pizza and I decided to try that. So that was a vegan pepperoni pizza that came with a vegan hot honey. And I documented this on my Instagram stories, like me deciding that I wanted to try it and then me making it and being like, I don't know guys, it doesn't look very good. And then me being like, oh my gosh, it actually was so good. The crust in particular was really good. The cheese, although it didn't look super appetizing, tasted really good. Pepperoni was great, and the hot honey was a very unique and delicious addition. And I ended up naming it my favorite frozen pizza of the year in my favorite vegan products of the year video last year. By the way, this year's favorite products video will be my next video out, so keep an eye out for that. I did end up trying a few other Tattooed Chef products, but I can't really remember what I tried. I know Paul tried a couple and we both really liked them. At a time when many people were and still are boycotting Amy's due to their allegations of unsafe working conditions and union busting, it felt like Tattooed Chef was coming onto the scene at the perfect time. I think I even said in my favorite products video that it felt like they were the new Amy's in some ways. Frozen, mostly vegetarian offerings, but a decent number of vegan offerings. And the Tattooed Chef meals felt more modern and appealing than the Amy's meals in a lot of ways, at least in my opinion. While we're on the topic of Tattooed Chef being mostly vegetarian, let's talk about the labeling controversy. There are many angry and frustrated Reddit posts, understandably so, from vegans who were misled by Tattooed Chef's plant-based labels on meals that had animal products in them. I have talked about labeling before, how we as a society really need to figure our shit out and come to some collective, definitive understanding about what means what. But I think most people understand plant-based to mean no animal products. And I think it was really not cool of Tattooed Chef to misuse that buzzword or that buzz label. They had to know they'd be confusing vegans by doing that. Most of the times I've seen their products, and this may be something that they changed or added over the years, there is a very clear label on the front that will either say vegetarian or vegan. I did find an item, and I'm not sure how long ago this item was from, but it was clearly a vegetarian product with animal products in it. Oh, I shouldn't say clearly. It was a vegetarian product with animal products in it, and it had the plant-based circular stamp on it. So that is certainly not cool. I found this late 2022 Forbes article detailing Tattooed Chef's struggles. The point of this article was announcing that Tattooed Chef were actually considering starting to sell meat. So there's that, but the article also says this. The company started off in 2017 and claims that it's always had more of a flexitarian ethos than anything else, making vegetarian, vegan, or non-GMO foods. But public documents and its 2021 national TV advertising campaign boldly led with plant-based marketing. It sounds to me, and I think it's coming across to all of us, that Tattooed Chef clearly had an identity issue. Like, they would have claimed it was plant-based, but they sold animal products and they were considering selling meat. What they were marketing themselves as was not what they actually were or who they actually were. And this leads us into discussing who are the major players behind Tattooed Chef. I don't know about you guys, but when I first became aware of Tattooed Chef, the name, the branding, the packaging, all brought to mind for me this image of this kind of alternative, cool, hip, vegan chef with tattoos. Someone kind of like an Issa Chandra Moskowitz. That's kind of what I imagined in my mind. I assumed that behind this company was a really talented chef who decided they wanted to sell packaged foods and somehow managed to raise a ton of money and make it happen. And I was very impressed by this entrepreneurial vegan chef that I had concocted in my mind. But after learning more about the company, it seems like that image was really just that, an image. Imaginary. After doing a little digging, I found this comment on Reddit which sums up who is behind the company. The company CEO is Sam Galletti, father of the creator, the quote tattooed chef Sarah Galletti, who I can't find conclusive evidence is vegan herself. The family made a small fortune distributing seafood and importing food from Italy, and the tattooed chef is seemingly a way to profit off a burgeoning market. That's a good overview, but let's take a closer look at the family behind Tattooed Chef. It starts with a man named Sam Galletti, whose name is actually Salvatore, but he goes by Sam. Sam appears to have started this company, Southwind Foods. According to their website, they have been in business for 25 years. It's essentially a fishing import and distribution company, but on their website, it also says they import, store, and distribute beef, poultry, and pork. So it's basically a meat company, fish and meat, importing, distributing, etc. That's how they made most of their money, it would seem. Southwind Foods has a bunch of brands underneath it, all of which seem to be fishing companies. So how does Southwind Foods connect to Tattooed Chef? Thanks again to this extremely helpful Reddit comment, I was able to find this document, which made my job very easy because it literally provided a timeline. Basically, Sam already has Southwind Foods, then decides to open Stonegate Foods in 2009 to import vegetables and other Italian products. In 2014, Sarah Galletti, Sam's daughter, joins the company. Then in 2015, Stonegate Foods changes their name to Itella International and begins manufacturing products in its own facility. As I was staring at this infographic for way too long, it occurred to me that Itella is Galletti spelled backward without the G. The company is sometimes called Itella Parent and sometimes called Itella International because it changed its name at some point. To keep it simple, I'm just going to call it Itella. In 2017, the Tattooed Chef brand is launched and begins focusing on plant-based products, or as we know, plant-based plus eggs and dairy. They also open a manufacturing plant in Italy. In 2019, they released 12 new products in club channels, which I didn't know what that term meant, but it means club stores like Costco and Walmart. Before we go further into the timeline, let's talk about Sarah Galletti, aka the Tattooed Chef. Sarah Galletti holds the title of Tattooed Chef and Creative Director, and since 2014 has led Itella's transition from a producer of private label frozen vegetables to a branded innovator of frozen plant-based meals and snacks. She is primarily responsible for the development of new products as well as the strategic and creative direction of the Tattooed Chef brand. Prior to her involvement with Itella, Ms. Galletti spent time in Italy working as a pizza and pastry chef at various eateries, which would explain why their pizza is so good. Ms. Galetti's time abroad led to her inspiration for the Tattooed Chef brand, having recognized a lack of high-quality plant-based options available within the US. I also found this Forbes profile of Sarah Galletti from from January of this year. It's a pretty short puff piece, but there were a few things that stood out to me. The interviewer asks, "You've shared that the idea for Tattooed Chef came to you in a dream. What was that like?" Sarah says, "After I got back from Italy, I wanted to merge this LA culture and my Italian roots together, but was unsure of what that really looked like until I had this dream. I saw logos, the aesthetic, and the packaging, and even the font type. It was very linear in the way that it appeared. It's hard to remember dreams, but for some reason I just woke up from this dream and I was like, I need to draw this out right now. It helped me carve out what the Tattooed Chef brand needed." I found this anecdote from Sarah very interesting because she talks about this inspiration coming to her, not to create delicious food that could change the world and the way people eat, but this image of branding and packaging, essentially. I have talked about this a lot with direct-to-consumer companies, especially Daily Harvest, how it oftentimes feels like this was just a person or a group of people who wanted to launch a successful business and brand and then worked backwards to decide what the product should be. As opposed to, like I said before, with the image of the Tattooed Chef, you know, this hardworking chef who dreamed of having her food reach the masses one day and then decided to start a business. There are a couple more questions in the interview. She doesn't say much else other than that it all happened organically at a time when people were willing to try new plant-based options. You know, kind of like, we just kind of got lucky. Like, I had this idea and the plant-based movement happened to be gaining momentum at the same time. I'm not sure if I buy that. There's nothing wrong with Sarah being a part of her family company and wanting to create a brand within that, but it definitely does feel like the decision to make the brand plant-based or, you know, partially plant-based was more about capitalizing on the trend of the plant-based movement than anything else. And also capitalizing on trendy chef culture, capturing an image of this person that wasn't even real. As far as I can tell, Sarah is not a trained chef. According to the website, she has some experience working in kitchens. There's also no mention of Sarah being vegetarian, certainly not vegan. Her dad said the company was founded on a flexitarian ethos, whatever that is. On the Tattooed Chef Instagram, they started featuring Sarah more earlier this year before the bankruptcy, seemingly to try to give people some type of human connection to the brand and the people behind it, which didn't really feel very effective. Like, if she is the Tattooed Chef and the heart and soul behind the brand, why didn't they make her more a face of the brand earlier? Why didn't they show her doing cooking demos? Like, why didn't they really play up the chef part of the brand? Learning all of this just makes the whole brand image feel really hollow and manufactured. Let's get back to our timeline. In this super helpful document, there was also a graphic of the product launch timeline. Obviously, an insane amount of products launched between 2017 and 2021, possibly even more in 2022. Just from an outside perspective, this looks pretty scary. So many new products, which must mean an insane amount of manufacturing overhead. It just seems like a lot to keep up with. Let's talk about them going public. In 2020, they merged with Forum Merger 2 Corporation, went public, and changed the name to Tattooed Chef, which I guess just means they dropped the.
Drop the. Just
Tattooed Chef.
it's cleaner.
People are so passionate about this topic, like I'm hesitant to even broach it. The bottom line is that Tattooed Chef seemed to be doing pretty well at first, especially for the first year they were public, then started to decline around September 2021 and never really recovered until finally this year it got down to 30 cents per stock. There's a big YouTube channel called Financial Education, which is run by a guy named Jeremy, who I guess was one of the biggest champions of Tattooed Chef stock. It seems like he encouraged people to buy and hold and held his stock long after Tattooed Chef seemed to be going downhill. He ended up posting a video this year being like, I was wrong. According to the comments, a lot of people lost a lot of money following his advice. Jeremy himself says he lost $1 million on this. He says he made the mistake of betting on an unproven management team, meaning the team behind Tattooed Chef had never led a public company before. So it's just a whole mess from that perspective. Tons of people losing money. It's obviously a risk you take when investing, but this seems like it was pretty bad for a lot of people. Let's get into some of the current issues as well as the bankruptcy. Tattooed Chef started operating at a loss in Q3 of 2022 and never regained profitability since then. Meanwhile, Tattooed Chef executives, including President and CEO Sam Galletti and CFO Stephanie Diekman, are facing a class action lawsuit alleging they made misleading statements and/or failed to disclose material facts about our business in the period from March 2021 to October 2022. Separately, a so-called derivative complaint was filed against certain of our officers and directors. It includes accusations of a breach of fiduciary duty, unjust enrichment, abuse of control, gross mismanagement, and a waste of corporate assets. There was also insider trading that occurred in April of 2021 by 2 employees, one being Sam Galletti. On June 30th of 2023, Tattooed Chef announces they would begin filings for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and pursue a sale of assets. At this point, operations seem to have completely ceased. There doesn't seem to be any new products being manufactured and sold. The Forbes article I mentioned earlier about how they were considering selling meat offers the most insight into what went wrong. At the heart of Tattooed Chef's problems was going public and having to answer to Wall Street investors rather than growing at its own pace as a closely held company. The company was profitable when it was private. Its vegan acai bowls and cauliflower-based pizza crusts were sold in 4,000 locations, mostly club stores like Walmart and Costco. After a reverse merger put it on the stock exchange, Tattooed Chef launched into supermarket chains like Kroger and Safeway. That cost a lot of money, and though Tattooed Chef has increased its distribution 5-fold to some 20,000 stores in just 2 years, the move siphoned significant cash for grocery store marketing, slotting fees, and other trade expenses. Something else I found interesting from this article is that they said Tattooed Chef also makes products for the private label brands of retailers including Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, and Aldi. So if you consume vegan frozen meals from any of those stores, they might actually be made by Tattooed Chef. Finally, a quote from Sam from this article. "We've ridden the coattails of some of the other competitors. We were riding the wave. The whole sector has gotten very depressed in the past several months. Is plant-based something here for good? Is it going through a pause? Does it have legs? Our opinion is it does, but it's definitely pausing." Could it be put any more plainly? The CEO of the company, the founder, the large owner, is saying we rode the coattails of our competitors. I think that kind of tells us everything we need to know about the intention behind the company. To sum up this whole mess, I'm going to defer to my unofficial co-writer of this video, the Redditor from before who had so many amazing comments on this topic. Seems as though a lot of smaller investors were grifted out of a lot of money. They sold themselves as some incredible innovator on the brink of incredible profits at the same time they were accruing massive debt and posting huge losses. It seems like they cooked the books right until the business went public for a final capital push and then tanked the company. The whole time they were paying huge executive bonuses. The company was floated publicly at a valuation of over $1.6 billion. The company is now under Chapter 11, being sold for $5 million. This summary reminds me a lot of what happened with Very Good Butcher, which isn't something I've ever talked about on the channel. You guys know I did a few video reviews of Very Good Butcher, and for the most part really did not like their products. The company went public and then not too long after that ended up going bankrupt and shutting down. As another Reddit comment explains, the Very Good Butchers, who actually had a great product, debatable, also had some super shady things go on with their company finances and stocks. They're gone now, but the creators walked away millionaires, meanwhile investors left holding the bag of worthless shares. This sucks. It's obviously very sad for people who believed in these companies, who invested their hard-earned money in these companies. It's also sad for the plant-based movement at large, because I fear that this makes the entire movement look bad. It just feels really icky, like the plant-based movement or the vegan movement is just reduced to how well a few shittily run companies are able to navigate the stock market. Where do we go from here, and why was this so disappointing overall? I think it's easy to assume when we see a new company with tons of products and distribution in places like Walmart and Target that they must be killing it and that the only way for them is up. But I think a lot of times that early and rapid expansion ends up becoming their downfall. What sucks about these stories is I think so often the takeaway becomes,
see, there's just no no demand for plant-based alternatives.
Really, I think this is less a lesson of lack of demand for plant-based food and more greed at the top takes down yet another company trying to cash in on the plant-based trend. One thing Jeremy said in his video is that he overestimated the plant-based movement and what it would become. And it's sad to think that while I, and probably many of you, were so excited to see the plant-based movement gaining traction because of what it could mean for the animals, so many other people just saw the plant-based movement as an opportunity to get rich quick. Overall, it's frustrating to see a company who had all the ingredients to actually make a difference in the plant-based movement, actually had the capital to make it happen, actually had the industry experience, actually had good products, fuck it up so badly. They disappointed a lot of people, from shareholders to people who actually liked the products. Who knows, maybe they will be able to sell, maybe this company will have another chance, but I think it's safe to say this whole journey has left a bad taste in many people's mouths. Let me know your thoughts on this whole mess, and also, did you try Tattooed Chef's products? Did you like them? Give this video a thumbs up if you found it interesting or informative, subscribe for more of my videos, and just a reminder, or I guess official announcement, because it's definitely happening, that I am going live on New Year's Day at 2:30 p.m. This is my first time ever going live on YouTube, so definitely stay tuned for more information about that, but mark your calendar if you are looking to do something and just hang out and chill with me on New Year's Day. I'm gonna be making a delicious meal, so we'll just be cooking and chatting, and yeah, more to come about that. I might do like a test run the Friday before just to make sure that I know how to work YouTube Live. So that is that. Thanks for tuning in today. Happy holidays. I hope you have a wonderful holiday if you celebrate. If not, I hope that you are just able to chill and relax, and I will see you again soon. Bye.